It has been nearly 5 years since the Ford Motor Company did something pretty huge. They did two things actually. They converted the Explorer to a rear-wheel drive based platform, and they brought back the Lincoln Aviator. Here we are in 2025 and the Explorer ST has a starting MSRP of $54,260. And the 2025 Aviator has a starting MSRP of $58,830.
Hello everybody and welcome to Performance on Wheels. My name is Austin. My dad Todd and I, we make all types of different car videos on all types of different cars. Today let's dive deep into finding out if it's truly worth spending the extra money on the Lincoln Aviator versus the Ford Explorer. Before we get into today's video, we need to give a huge shout out to Apple Autos for supplying this 2025 Lincoln Aviator as well as this 2025 Ford Explorer. If you guys would be willing to check out Apple Autos, be sure to check out the link down in the description below.
Austin and I will be pointing out the new facelift and what's new for 2025 in both the Aviator and Explorer. And starting off on the side here, there's not anything to talk about, so let's actually move the cars. Now that we're in the front of both the Aviator and Explorer, we actually have something to talk about in 2025, but let's just back up just a second, Austin and everyone else. Like, what the heck are we doing? We have a Lincoln Aviator, a luxury brand, and America's SUV, the Ford Explorer, and we're talking about both of them. So just for the basic knowledge, these are two vehicles that are on the exact same platform, and in the ST and Platinum lineup, we have the exact same 400 horsepower, 3-liter V6 engine, right? So there's actually a lot of similarities here. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the video, our starting MSRPs are within $4,000 of each other. So there's some legitimate cross-shopping that occurs here. And in 2025, with just that subtle refresh, these might be some appealing vehicles for you to look. Now let's start over here on the Aviator, and we're starting to see some of that similarity from the Nautilus that occurred on Lincoln, and maybe that's coming in here in the Navigator pretty soon too. But we have that daytime running light that's now going into the grille a little bit. That grille got wider, both not only on the main grille, but that lower grille got wider and bigger as well. But beyond that, guys, like the Aviator, there's not much new going on here. Same hood, same side profile. We still have those 21-inch wheels. But on the Explorer, there is a little bit more drama to talk about, but it's the same stuff. The grille got wider, the fog light bezel like changed directions essentially, and then the grille on the lower side got wider as well.
And our headlights surprisingly kind of look like they almost got smaller in a way. However, unlike the Aviator over there, we actually changed around back of the Explorer. Let's go ahead and flip these around.
Around back we have a lot of, no we don't. Once again, the Aviator, I squinted, I cockeyed my head, I looked at this thing 5 different ways comparing the previous model years, and there is absolutely nothing different. There are some changes that I actually really appreciate, although subtle, over on the Explorer ST here and all the Explorer lineup for that matter. We have the, like this tail light is essentially the same, but what happened is we made like the whole bezel go across the entire trunk, putting some lights in there that it really does spice up the rear end. I do appreciate it. Looks pretty good.
It does look really good. And now you may wonder, why are we comparing an ST, the sporty version of the Explorer, instead of the Platinum Explorer? And no, that is because that we are trying to stay as close together in price as we possibly can. The ST is the most expensive Explorer that there is starting at, so that makes it the most relevant when we talk about comparisons to the Lincoln over there. Now on the outsides of these two SUVs, it's definitely clear to me that the Lincoln is a lot more luxurious looking when it comes to the body lines and overall design, where the Explorer here is definitely going after that sporty appeal. However, when we do hop over to that Platinum, which is a little bit less money than the ST that we're showing in this video, it looks a little bit more luxurious, but at the same time, compared to that Lincoln, the body lines on the Explorer are just a little bit more tough looking. They're a little bit more boxy, a little bit more extreme compared to the elegant body lines that we have over on the Aviator. The Aviator is a much more beautiful car rolling down the road compared to the Explorer, in my opinion. The Explorer is you know, it just kind of looks like your standard kind of more boxy SUV, with the Aviator over here with that design to look like an airplane in a way. Actually, it has a lot more smooth looking body lines.
And what's actually really fun here, Austin, is like you put these right next to each other so you can like compare the profiles, and they're like they're literally spot on.
Yeah.
So it's just like the molding of the different panels and the dimension that brings that's really bringing the visual like cues to the eye.
It's really interesting looking at these cars next to each other, knowing that they're the same size in every way and just how dramatically different that they do look.
We're going to get to the inside, and there's some pretty important things to point once we get in there in the 2025 model year. But first, let's just point out some of the things that Austin and I see different between these two models.
On the Explorer, I have your standard opening door handle, and the same applies on the inside. Standard handle. Compared to the Aviator over here, I don't have your normal handle. There's an electronic button on the back side. To electronically open the door on the inside, you have this button, and just in case it doesn't work, you have a manual release down low. On the Explorer, I can power fold up and down my third row seats. And it's the exact same thing in the Lincoln. On the bottom half of the Lincoln, we have some storage. We do on the Explorer too. However, on the Explorer, we have these plastic cubbies that are on the side, and this thing just kind of sits here. It's kind of weird.
To move my seats on the Aviator, I will find my controls on the door, and in the lower trim reserve here, I actually have to go into my screen here and select for my lumbar adjustment, but notice there's no massage.
Over here on the Explorer, all of my seat controls are down below. I got everything here. I have lumbar adjustment where I don't have to go through the screen, but if I press this button, I can go onto this screen and I have the availability to choose massages. So the Ford has massages, but the Lincoln doesn't.
In the second row of the Aviator, we have captain's chairs, which we will find over on the Explorer, but check this out. I have this very fancy center screen that gives me all sorts of options, but one thing it doesn't give me is the option to turn on my heated seats, because I don't even have heated seats in this Aviator.
Coming outside of the second row of the Aviator into the second row of the Explorer, the second row of the Explorer's rear seats are much stiffer. However, my view is much better, opposed to a hard plastic back seat in the Aviator. We have a nice leather look with this red stitching around it. I love the way the door panels look in the Aviator over the look in the Explorer. However, I think the door panels look nice in the Explorer, but there's a lot more hard plastic exposed. Here in the back seat of the Explorer, I don't have a fancy screen. However, I do have heated rear seats. Another luxury item I have in the Explorer that I don't have on the Lincoln are these window shades. Granted, they are manually moving. At least I have them, unlike not even having them on the Lincoln. I think that shows off all of the quick differences that we can show off between these two vehicles. As you can see, there's some things that the Lincoln has that the Ford doesn't, and there's some things that the Ford has that the Lincoln doesn't. So it's kind of interesting looking at those two things, and you kind of have to nitpick what is more important to you over the other thing. And a lot of the things that the Lincoln has that the Ford doesn't, ultimately just comes down to looks, and it comes down to tech, and it kind of seems like the Explorer has it, but the Lincoln doesn't in the base trims. Now let's hop behind the seat of both of these vehicles and show what's really different for 2025.
Sitting behind the wheel of the Aviator, there is no denying that this is a luxury vehicle compared to the Explorer, especially in the ST lineup, but we'll talk more about that in a second. Great fit and finish, even on the lower trims. A lot of leather. There is still hard plastic on the lower trims, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about today. It feels luxurious with the hints of chrome, the different colors of leather that are being used, and just some of the different textures. It feels luxurious. The seats have a little more cushion. It feels luxurious. There's not a lot that changed in the center console here in 2025, but there are some changes as we look forward. We not only have a new speedometer display, but also our infotainment system is different. I do notice as I look out the windshield that I have a beautiful heads-up display, and I do notice that on top of my steering wheel in this model that is select for the Aviator, it's not necessarily on the base trim, but I do have that now on Lincoln called Blue Cruise again. And a big difference here is that in the Lincoln you get a 4-year subscription. Let's get into the Explorer ST here quick, and we know it's sporty right off the bat because we have that red stitching that's on the inside of the steering wheel, across the door panels, all the way across the dashboard, in the center console, and we also have that Alcantara type material, microfiber-ish material that's lined by the leather trim seats, and we just know it's aggressive. We get in here and we grab the steering wheel. It's got a lot of meat to it. You know that with the bolstering of the steering wheel, that you're in something significantly powerful. That 400 horsepower is felt with 9 and 2, 10 and 2. I think that's 10 and 2 would be the accurate description there. But let's talk about the important stuff here instead of me mumbling. The dashboard is dramatically different compared to 24, transitioning into 25. I think this is a huge improvement for the Explorer, definitely noteworthy. The different textures, and I do like this, I don't know, it's almost like speaker fabric type material and color that kind of promotes the B&O sound system there on the end. But then you transition down and you have multiple textures, multiple different material and different colors, really bringing to life the inside of the Explorer. As we look outward, I see no heads-up display, but I do see the same Ford dashboard, the instrument cluster that I'm seeing in almost every Ford product at this point. I do see the same Blue Cruise, letting me know that I have Blue Cruise here, and I'm pretty sure we're only a 90-day trial in the Explorer. That's a significant difference between the Lincoln that has 4 years as mentioned. And then when I look to my radio, my climate control, I'm noticing that there's no hard buttons for that climate control anymore. Austin's going to get into this in just a second here, but I have the exact same infotainment screen that I have over in the Aviator.
Now let's talk tech. This is going to be very similar between these two vehicles. I'm going to go back and forth and show you the differences, but ultimately the only differences are like design and colors used, and like over on this side, you know, some of the animations and stuff, that's completely different. However, the overall layout and the way that this works is totally different than prior. This is no longer powered by Ford system. This is no longer a sync system. This is now powered by Google or Android. It's an Android system, and it's just an Android tablet basically on your dashboard. It works fantastically. Everything's super fast. Everything is fantastic the way that it works. It's super easy to use. It's way better than Sync ever was. It still has Android Auto. It still has Apple CarPlay. You can now play games up on your screen with a controller through Google Play. You can use YouTube. You can use whatever. Like, this is now powered by Google, and it's better than it was before. You will be happy with it. You have all of your controls through here, and I can promise you it will be significantly faster than Sync ever was. And just to show you some of the different animations, like here's some of the different drive modes that you get over on the Lincoln versus if we head over inside of the Ford. As you can see, as we go through the Ford's drive modes, they're not nearly as cool of animations. They're still definitely cool and unique, but definitely a lot more basic. Both the Explorer and the Lincoln do have ambient lighting like we showed off. They both have the same color options. There's nothing too crazy there. It is nice. It does add a nice sense of elegance to the interior, but like I said, you guys, this is the same system that we find over in the Lincoln. It works the exact same. It looks the exact same. Ultimately, it functions the exact same. It's laid out the same. It's just different color palette.
Austin, this is kind of fun checking these out because I don't know if a lot of people cross-shop between these two, but from a price standpoint, you can be in a very similar lineup. At the end of the day, the Aviator is most likely going to be a few ticks more expensive or dramatically more expensive because you're not going to get an Explorer over $70,000 where you can be pushing triple digits over here in the Aviator if you really wanted to, right?
Now, here's one of the things that is cool about the Lincoln, though, unlike the Ford, is the incentives on Lincolns are usually significantly higher. I'm pretty sure there's 0% on these right now. I'll put it up on the screen if I'm wrong on that. And I know for a fact there's not 0% financing on the Explorer right now. So that makes it kind of a bit more appealing that there's some of those financing options that Lincoln usually pushes a bit harder than Ford does. So that's another thing to keep your eye out for sure, that you can check from your local dealership or the manufacturer. Now, the question is here, which one would you buy? You know, very similar price. Lincoln's a little bit more money. Obviously, the Explorer's a little bit less. In the Explorer, we're talking about getting more tech versus more luxury, and when it comes to just design, I think.
Right.
So which one would you pick?
A little more fit and finish difference. The comment down below, like this is the question of the day, right? The question of the video. Which one do you choose? All those fun features, all the tech that you can possibly get, or just something that maybe looks a little classier?
We should also mention that the Aviator does ride a little bit better. It's got a different suspension system in it, so it does have a little bit more luxurious of a ride, a little bit more boaty of a feel, compared to the more sporty of a feel that the Explorer has as well. So that's the question. Which one did you guys pick? Let us know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I think that summarizes everything I had to say. Does it summarize everything you had?
I'm going with the Aviator, I think, but it's really hard for me.
I would think that I would have to agree just because the overall design and layout layout just feels so much more luxurious. I think the outside looks a lot better. I really, really like the look of the Aviator. I know it's a little bit more money, but I do think I picked the Aviator as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.